In this video, I'm going to give you some examples here of snow camouflage or white overlay gear, depending on what you call them or want to call them. The reason I'm doing this video is because I came across an article this morning when I got up to go to work and wasn't feeling well, so I ended up staying home. That's why I'm going to try knocking out as many videos as possible today. The article stated that the U.S. military is coming out with a new type of winter camouflage because they're now going to prepare for the possibility of wars in cold weather environments. This is completely different than the thinking that we've had since the 90s, where we were going to be dealing in the deserts. Well, now we're shifting our focus towards temperate regions and potentially subarctic regions. Now, for those of you looking for videos on that type of stuff, subarctic warfare, cold weather bivouacking, in the video I did on the mountain cook set, I believe I put some links in the description going to some of those videos from the 1950s. They are worth watching. Those are the newest videos I've ever come across on YouTube. Is it possible there are newer ones from later in the Cold War? Yes, I just have not found them, or they have not been posted yet. But when you're operating in a winter environment, areas, temperate parts of the country where you are going to get snow and it will last, it's not just going to fall, it's going to melt right away, you really should plan for some type of snow camouflage, because we need to be ready for operations year-round. Well, when you watch some of those videos from the 50s, you'll see them primarily when they're out moving and that stuff, going between assembly areas or up to their attack positions and that stuff. What they'll usually wear is the white pants over the top of their cold weather gear, and they would not wear the parka, the white parka over the top, unless they were crossing a snowfield. Otherwise, they would just use their field jackets, or in more modern stuff, their Gore-Tex jackets. They would leave that exposed. And the reasoning for that, I believe, is because they were moving through areas with a lot of evergreens, a lot of conifers, your pines and your cedars. So this is basically the ground. You're going to have snow on the ground. And then if they're traveling, the green part on the upper body, in theory, would blend in with those trees as they're moving through. If they were wearing the white parka over the top while they're going through trees, it's going to stand out. Now, the exception with that would be if it's a recent heavy snowfall and you have a lot of snow in the trees, then you probably should go with some type of white or splotch patterned snow camo for the top of half of your body. This over here is an example of the German stuff. This is reversible. One side of this is all white. The other side of this has a splotch pattern. And this splotch pattern, if you look at it, is kind of patterned after evergreens. If you look in close here, you can see almost a needle outline. So for them, if they're in a big white snowy field, there's no vegetation popping through, they would go to the white side. If they're traveling through trees and that type of stuff, they would have the splotch pattern on the outside. This particular one here is not the parka, this is a poncho. You can get ponchos, you can get pants, and you can get the parkas in this German reversible. For me, this is the better option for my area, because we kind of move back and forth between both. You know, we'll have times where everything's covered in snow and times where, you know, some of the trees are starting to poke through, so then the splotch pattern would be more called for. And that's what you're going to see over the majority of the northern part of the U.S. So I would recommend, if you can get something, try to get the reversible. There are different types out there. Different countries did different patterns on their stuff. It looks like the current one coming out in the US is going to be a white base, and they're going to have kind of a splotch pattern of grayish green on it, kind of like what's on the ACU, but instead of covering the entire thing, it's just going to be in patches on it, which would make a hell of a lot more sense. Now, one thing to consider, if you have a helmet, that needs to be camouflaged also. Well, they do make white helmet covers. This one is designed for the Kevlar because that's what I use. I use a Kevlar helmet. Now, what I did, and I highly recommend this, if you get a white cover for your helmet, get one that's one size bigger than what you normally wear. So if you wear a medium helmet, get a large. And then when you would move through terrain that's whiter and that stuff, you would pull this out of your pocket, put it over the top of the helmet, you know, fasten it on there, just like with a regular Kevlar cover. This one has the little Velcro on it. Put it over the top to cover everything up, and then once you're through there, if you don't want this on the helmet, you just go through, disconnect it, ball it up, fold it up, put it in a pouch or in the pocket on your parka. This is large enough because of getting it one size larger. It will completely cover the camouflage cover I have on my helmet. And if I would put anything else on it, like a NVG mount or one of those special forces looking flashlight mounts, rails that they put on the sides of the helmet, this would go over the top of that without me having to take anything off. Now you also want to cover your rucksack, because your rucksack would stand out. Now I got here two different examples on this. This is the US issue one. For those of you that were ever issued the desert camo cover for your Alice pack, this is essentially the same thing, except it's all in white. See if I can get a close-up here of the tag. This will cover a rucksack. It will not, when I've been playing around with it, it will not cover a rucksack and a sleeping bag if you got it strapped on there, unless it's a really small one. And it really has troubles going over your sleeping mat if you have that attached to the top of your ruck or to the bottom. Now, one thing I learned in the desert, we had issues with our camo covers slipping off of our rucksacks. So if you get this type, I would really recommend you put in a couple holes, one on each side. Reinforce that hole with some stitching so it's not going to keep unraveling the entire cover. And then use maybe a bungee cord or a piece of 550 cord to hold this in place. So you put it over the top of the rucksack, and then you attach on that bungee cord, run it over the top of the frame underneath your straps, and you're not going to feel it, okay? It's not going to be digging in your back, and that'll help hold this cover in place. Now, another one I came across was a British made one, as they call it, their Bergen cover, because they call the rucksacks Bergens. Let's see if I can get you the label here. This thing is huge. This would go over your Molly pack, your modular rucksack system that's the current issue. And if you're using the Alice pack, this would go over your pack and a sleeping mat or a sleeping bag. If you got both attached to your bag, you'll probably want to have one of these and one of these to cover that remaining item to make sure it's fully camouflaged. Now, as for your full battle rattle, your load-bearing equipment, it's designed to be worn over the load-bearing equipment's designed to be worn over the top of your camo so that you can get at your ammo pouches and stuff. But this poncho you could wear over the top of your gear. Your sides are still going to be loose, so you can feed a hand underneath the poncho to get at your spare magazines and then pull it out, put it in your weapon. Will it slow you up? Yes, it will add a extra second or two to your reload time. But it's something for you to consider if you want to cover completely or just go with your gear over the top. If you're wearing body armor with the pouches on it, connected to it, you don't have a separate set like an LBE or LBV, you might really want to consider getting a poncho. If you're just using the LBE, LBV type system, then you could wear that over the top of a parka. And it does blend in or add to your camouflage just a little. Now, as for your boots and that, not as much of an issue. If you do have an issue or it really bugs you, the possibility of wearing a dark colored boot in a winter environment, they did make white cold weather boots, white bunny boots or pack boots, whatever you want to call them, or Mickey Mouse boots. I've heard lots of names for the same set of stuff. I don't have those boots because I never personally used them. I never needed those. It never got cold enough for that. Most part of the U.S. I don't think you would need them. Maybe up along the Canada border you might need them, but for the rest of the part of the U.S. you're probably good enough with some type of winter hunting boot or Gore-Tex military issue boot. So, also a warning, I'll give you this. I was told this years ago from a light infantryman. A lot of those white Mickey Mouse boots, those white pack boots that are on the surplus market, the reason they're on the market is because the soles on them are too wore out. They got so wore down from being used for so many years that they would not hold any traction whatsoever on ice. So that light infantryman said when they were still using those before they got them replaced, if they tried walking across a frozen stream or anything like that, they were slipping and sliding all over the place because there was no grip left on them. So be forewarned on that. Keep your eyes open. If you order white pack boots, probably do it in person, not online, unless it says they're brand new. And even when they show up, I would double check the soles on them. Make sure that there is still a very distinct pattern on them that would grip slippery surfaces. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.